Welcome to Real Bass Lessons. Today, I would like to give you a lesson on sound production. Now, I know when most people hear the word sound, they start thinking of gear. Well, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about sound here in your hands and in your bass. Some people say, yeah, Jim, that's kind of old-fashioned today because, you can get gear to make your bass sound any way you want. Well, that's probably true. I know it is. But I know that good players also get a good sound from their instrument. You've probably seen that when a really good player picks up your bass or another student's bass or maybe a bass off a wall in a music store and they play and you go, oh my goodness, they just got that same sound. They got their sound. You bet. That's in the fingers. That's in the hands. It's in the concept, the ear. And that's what I'd like you to, think about developing. Too many people, again, as I say, players and luthiers both, they think that a sound is everything that happens after the preamp. Well, not really. Even though you can adjust a lot of that, we need to work on a good sound. One of the things to do is to simply pull the string and release it. Actually, let me turn the volume off. That's what I wanted. Now you notice this is an acoustic instrument. It's just not a real loud one, and we amplify it with the pickups. But you want to work on getting a sound with just your fingers. And the way I teach it, on electric bass as well as double bass, and that is pull and release. Pull and hold it if you want. But the point is the sound should come not from hitting the string, but from releasing the string. And I think quite naturally, your fingers, simply when you release the string, will fall back and hit this one. Excuse me. Yeah, I know a lot of players who play like this and finger pick and pull away from the strings, and that's totally fine. But I'm just talking about a pretty basic, generic sort of way to play the bass. So listen to it again. Yeah, you bet. Work on a sound in your fingers. Number one, I suggest you do at least half of your practicing with no amp. Sure, no amplifier, just to learn to draw sound out of the instrument. When I have new students, I'm always yelling, dig in. Or actually, that's not true. I'm always saying, bend the string. And they say, what do you mean? I say, well, just dig in and play louder. Check this out. With no amplifier, I'm going to play 3 different volumes here. I'll play medium, soft, and then loud. Now I know, because we're dealing with the vocal mic here and it's a ways away, that you're hearing just a lot of the rattling and stuff, but you could also hear that different dynamic level I created. Some people say, Jim, well, I don't want to play kind of noisy and hard like that. Well, I'm not talking about playing noisy and hard, even though there's a time for that. I'm talking about simply learning how to dig in and move the strings. See, that has a different feeling. I used the same notes, but I moved the string and created some energy. I heard someone describe it like this. If you're standing right beside me and I yell really loud, well, you can hear it. But if I run 100 yards out there and yell really loud, it's much quieter. But because I'm yelling, you can still feel that intensity. So there's a certain amount of intensity that's created by bending the string. Cool. Now you might say, well, Jimmy, you're just talking about dynamics. Well, the end result may be dynamics, but it's also in the feel. If we turn the bass up now, that's kind of a medium attack for me. Matter of fact, by the way, I would say that for many of you, my playing is really hard. No, it's about a medium for me. Let me do that again. Here's soft. Here's loud. Medium. You betcha. By the way, I've taught a lot of years, a lot of students, and I would say 99% of all the players I first meet when they're first playing, all the bass players, they're all playing between a mezzo piano and a mezzo forte. They're never really playing strong, loud, and they sure aren't playing quiet. By the way, you know what that P for pianissimo sounds like? Piano and pianissimo? Sorry, P is for piano. It translates into soft. Well, this is soft. Sure, no, most people talk kind of a medium and play the same way, and they don't have a dynamic range. Well, you're never going to develop a good sound without working on that dynamic range, okay? So check this out again. I'm just going to play that major scale. Let's do it soft. Let's do it loud. Yeah, see, with the amplifier on, you don't hear as much of the string rattling, but you just hear the volume increase in the bass. Well, that, practicing without an amplifier, is the way you start working on your sound. You can do it with an amplifier too, but you have to work those three areas of dynamics. So we simply want to start to learn the range of expression that our instrument has. And I mean expression in the sense of, is it intense? Is it relaxed? Is it soft? Is it loud? Is it aggressive? Sure. So maybe something like this. I'll do a illustrate three or four or five of them here, okay? Medium. Loud. Soft. Crescendos we go up and decrescendos we go down. Again. The opposite, like this. Again. Sure, you want to practice simple things like scales, arpeggios, or maybe a little etude. I always use a little etude for that, to work on dynamics. And dynamics isn't in the knob. It is just truly amazing when I'm teaching a group of students and I'll look at one student and I'll say, Charlie, you need to play a little quieter. He'll reach down and turn down. It's like, whoa, 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 what about the fingers? The same thing as I say, Charlie, you need to bring your part a little more. They'll reach and turn it up. Folks, you need to adjust your amp to where you can get a nice, good medium volume and then learn to use your fingers. Learn to use your fingers, okay? Let's go to another phase of sound production now. Now let's talk about your instrument. Of course, it's part of the sound. As I mentioned earlier, I like to hear an instrument totally acoustically. I can feel its vibration or not. Different basses obviously had just a different amount of natural sound, a different tone and a different amount of sound too. This is about as normal as you could get in a bass. It's just an alder body. Actually, that's not true. This is an ash body, and it's a maple neck with a rosewood fingerboard. And maybe the only thing that's a little unique is this is that really candy glossy finish. It's fairly thick. The amount of finish you have on a bass or no finish makes a big difference in the tone. But let's just assume you have an instrument that's sort of normal sounding like this. Well, you want to practice listening for the tone. I'll do a couple, just a little bit more playing here, and maybe you can sort of hear how I produce different tones. Sure, I was trying to communicate a different intensity, a different feeling, simply by how hard I contacted the instrument and some of the range and register I played. So you can think about that and work on it. Do you want to play soft up here and make it sing? By the way, soft is a funny word. When I say sing me or play me a medium volume, well, how do we know the next person hears that as a medium volume? So when I said play soft up here and sing, I don't mean play soft. No, I mean I pull the string just enough to really get it to sing. What it is there's a medium point. It's just like a tennis racket, that sweet spot in the tennis racket where it moves the best. On the double bass, where do you place the bow? Up or down? There's a certain spot where it's like, oh, that's where it vibrates the most. Well, you want to set your instrument up to where you can play sort of a medium volume and you feel like, oh, that's really a singing there. If you set the instrument up too high, it takes too much pressure to bend the string and it's sort of tense. You set it up too low and you really can't dig in. All you can do is just play on the frets a little bit. You just, it's like playing up here. You can't dig in and make it speak. Now, I know for different styles of music, different height is sort of required to get some of that really loud and aggressive sound, but not necessarily for that soft, warm singing sound. Maybe sometimes you want it lower, you feel like you can play faster, and that's fine. But you've got to have your instrument set up, maybe you have to get a different instrument, to where it can sing. How about a little volume? Sure. Could you see that I was playing fairly aggressive? These strings are what I would call a medium. And I imagine to most people, these would be like a medium high. But it's kind of medium because I play pretty strong. I've played the double bass all my life. I play fretless bass, and I just sort of learned to make those strings move, get a feel for it. If anything, it doesn't allow me to do, and that is play smoother and a little bit faster, like I would play on a 6 string, some really fast bebop stuff. I also have those basses, 6 strings and 5 strings and high strings and low strings. But on a normal instrument here, I like it to feel sort of meaty so that I can, and also I can sing, but I can just play. I can just play kind of meat, and it doesn't bottom out, nor they're not too high that it doesn't sound stiff. I'm hoping that makes some sense. It's that sweet spot. How high you set them, how low you set them, how much you pull on them, okay? Let's go to another little section right now, and I'll tune my bass. Now another, perhaps the most fundamental, important aspect of developing a good sound in your instrument is you've got to have a good sound in your ear. That means you need to be listening analytically. And I don't mean to a band where they're just like, it's just noisy and you can't hear it. I mean in a situation to where you can hear the bass, you can hear the tone, you can hear the attack of the fingers. Trust me, how someone physically plays the instrument is a big part of the sound. When I was very young and I was started by my first double bass, I went with my teacher. I had never owned a double bass. I'd taken a couple lessons from him only, James Harnett in Seattle. And on our way driving to the bass shop, he was going to pick a bass out for me. I said, Mr. Harnett, how do I know what a good bass sounds like? And he sort of chuckles and goes, well, you probably don't. He said, it's going to take a lot of input, a number of years of experience playing different basses to know how they sound, how different basses sound. And then until you can play well, how do you know if it's a good bass? Because you probably can't even produce a good sound. And I smiled and I said, well, then that's why you're along, isn't it? And he said, oh, yes. Now, Harnett went in and played a couple of basses in my price range and had me thump on one of them. He said, that's for you. That was the best one. So I'm just telling you, the guy who says, man, I love my, $199 whatever, it just sounds as good as any $7,000 bass. Well, maybe to your ear, maybe it doesn't to someone else's ear. See, beauty's in the eye of the beholder, and I'm aware of that. I'd never criticize anybody for having any bass they want. Cheap, expensive, loud, whatever. But you're going to have to experiment and gain some experience. I just told one person recently, you want some changes in your life? You got to make some changes in your life. Well, that applies to music. You want to perhaps upgrade your sound, not only playing-wise, but you're going to have to try some different basses and listen to them. And more particularly, if you can, get a friend of yours, a teacher, someone who's a lot better, and say, hey, will you try out this bass or these two basses and let me listen and watch and ask questions? Because that's really how we're going to gain some knowledge. Listen to recordings and simply emulate the sound. When I first started playing jazz, I was fortunate enough that this a mentor of mine gave me 10 Oscar Peterson records. 10 of them, and said, play along with them. And I had no idea what he was talking about. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, just put them on and start playing. And I said, but I don't know the chords. He said, well, that doesn't matter. Just start playing. I said, but there's going to be a ton of wrong notes. He said, well, that doesn't matter. Just start playing and get the feel. So I learned how to play jazz playing along with Ray Brown on the Oscar Peterson records. And I couldn't figure out the notes. I was just going thump, thump, thump. But after hours, and I mean hours and hours and hours, I started to get that feel and that sound. I even learned a couple of right notes. But more to the point, I developed a concept in my ear, inside of me, of what a jazz bass line should sound like. And I was playing electric bass, and he plays double bass. Don't let anybody tell you can't play jazz on an electric bass, or you can't slap on a fretless, or you can't tap on it. You can do anything on anything as long as you get a sound for it here. And by the way, that doesn't come in, 20 minutes or an hour and a half. It comes in a few years, after a few years of totally analyzing, working with sound, listening to specific recordings, and hearing the sound and going, I'm getting the idea now. So you can choose any sound you want. If you like your cheap bass, keep it. But if you might want to try some others, you might go, hey, there's some sound there that I can't get with mine. Well, it's the same with your ears. Want some changes in your ears? Got to start putting some new information and new sounds in your ears. So you should be listening to bass sounds, recordings, listening to basses for the purpose of gaining experience, knowledge that then allows you, what it does is it sort of creates inside you without knowing it, your idea of that's a good bass sound. So we can all hear pitches, whether it's wrong or right. Most of us hear rhythms, whether it's wrong or right. But sometimes we don't know what a good sound is. Here's one thing that I've always thought was fun. You ever go to a concert and before it starts, you're kind of up front watching and the bass player starts warming up and you go, oh my God, this is going to be good. Well, how do you know? Because you can tell immediately by his sound. Your sound is your voice and just the sort of attack and touch and sound. You go, oh my God, this is it. As opposed to the opposite, you hear somebody warming up and you go, whoa, this is noisy and rattly and crazy and out of tune and out of time and doesn't sound good. Sure, your sound is a big part of it. It's your identity. So start working on your fingers, on your instrument, and on your ears. Fire it up.